Hello and welcome back to Theology with Mr. L. I am Mr. L. And today we're going to just continue talking about the confirmation sponsors, right? And kind of the requirements for confirmation sponsors, the topic of confirmation sponsors, all that kind of stuff. So, as I've been saying with my other confirmation related videos, these are all questions that were written down by my students with regards to the topic of confirmation. And I have 3 questions here, but I think they all can kind of be answered in kind of the same video, they're all asking kind of the same thing. So, the first question says, does your confirmation sponsor have to be Catholic? The next one is, how old does your confirmation sponsor have to be? And the last one, which I feel sums up all of those questions, is, what are the requirements for a confirmation sponsor? So let's talk about it today, right? Now, let's understand that each church might have additional requirements and they might have specific things that they're wanting and looking for and that kind of a thing. I'm just giving you kind of the basic minimum that our Catholic Church says, hey, these are the minimum requirements. And then I want to be clear, these are the minimum requirements of a confirmation sponsor, right? That like I said, our capital C church kind of puts out there in canon law. And the first is that they need to be over 16 years old. All right, so that makes sense. They need to be over 16 years old. We talked about this in the last video, but if someone's going to be a guide and mentor and whatever, well, then they should be old enough to guide you and mentor you and that kind of thing. So that's a minimum of 16 years old. Now, that can be kind of waived at the pastor's discretion, but I don't know. So over 16 years old, that's kind of the baseline minimum there. The other is that they have received all of the sacraments of initiation, right? So they received baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist, right? That's a big one. So your confirmation sponsor has to be confirmed themselves. That's kind of a big one. So if they have not yet received the sacrament of confirmation, then they can't be your sponsor, right? It just doesn't make sense. If they weren't confirmed, how could they be your sponsor? Anyway, moving on. So the last one is a big one, and it's that they need to be a Catholic in good standing. And that's kind of like, what does that mean, a Catholic in good standing? Well, one way to think about it is, well, do they meet the 5 precepts of the church, which are, just what am I saying, the 5 precepts of the church? Those are the 5 kind of minimum requirements the church puts out there and says, if you are a Catholic, then to be a Catholic, well, you need to do certain things, right? If we're talking about anything else, right, if you belong to a club or if you play a sport, right, well, the minimum requirement is that you probably go to practice, you wear the right gear, right, and that you go out and you play, right? So, well, okay, so if you're, like I said, if you're playing a sport, like, if you sit there and say, like, oh yeah, I'm a basketball player, well, great. What do? You know, do you go to practice? When's your game? When can I see you? And your response is like, oh no, I'm a basketball player, but I've never touched a basketball before. Yeah, I don't do practices. I don't do games. I'm a basketball player, but I don't actually play. Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, it's illogical. So in the same way, it's like, okay, if you're a Catholic and you say, yeah, I'm a Catholic, okay, well, that means you gotta, wear the right gear and you gotta show up to practice and you gotta do all these other things, right? Now it looks a little different, but this is what the church says. These are the 5 precepts of the church, right? The first is that you attend Mass on Sundays and holy days of obligation, right? So that's a big one. The next one is that you receive the sacrament of confession once a year. The third is that you receive the Eucharist at least once a year during the Easter season. Okay? The fourth is that you fast and abstain on days of fasting and abstinence. And the fifth one is that you provide for the church. Right? You provide for the needs of the church. Okay? Maybe that means through donations and money. Maybe that means your time. And, there's a lot of different ways that we can give to the needs of the church and kind of help the church out in whatever that means, right? So the big thing here I just want to kind of touch on, though, is that all of these things are the minimum requirements, right? that these are the minimum requirements your sponsor should meet. I think if they're checking all these boxes, that's obviously a good thing. But then you should also ask yourself this question, right? Is this person going to pray for you? Is this person going to walk with you, in your spiritual journey? Is this someone that's, as we talked about in our previous videos, going to be a role model for you in regards to your Catholic faith? Yeah, the church doesn't require these things, but that's the mission of the sponsor. So, is your sponsor someone that's going to do these things? Right, and I know a lot of other questions, right? People will think, well, okay, do they have to be a family member? They don't have to be a family member. A lot of times they are. Well, do they have to be your godparent? Well, they don't have to be your godparent either. All right, they can be, but they don't have to be, right? And just because someone's a godparent or a sponsor rather for someone else doesn't mean they can't be a sponsor for you. For example, my aunt was not only my confirmation sponsor, but my brother's confirmation sponsor as well. So she was a confirmation sponsor to all three of us. Totally fine, right? So what I want you guys to remember, what I want to kind of leave you with is this, is that your confirmation sponsor is someone, at the end of the day, is someone that you know is going to pray for you, that you know is going to push you to greater holiness. Someone that's going to mentor you and guide you. So I really want to challenge you as you're in this process of figuring out who should be my sponsor. Mom and dad are probably going to have a lot of suggestions, and those are good, right? They're good. That's the role of a parent. They're supposed to help you and guide you as well. But I would really encourage you to really take those suggestions and bring them to prayer and ask God, who should be my sponsor? Who's someone that I know is living out their faith, that I know is actively pursuing the Lord and is going to help me do the same in my own life? So this is Mr. Liuzzi signing off with Theology with Mr. L. It's been a good one. Have a great day. And don't forget to like and subscribe and leave some comments. Cheers.